Why, hello. So I'm actually going to be starting this live video. So let's see if I can find my co-host here, Mr. Projector J1. All right. Now he just has to request me. So yeah, hopefully for the next hour we'll answer some questions about some latest films. And there he
Hey,
is, Shaw.
hey, unfortunately, folks, we have a little bit of a faux pas, so I guess we're going to have a kind of difference this time, and hopefully next month it will be different. Here's the thing. I only have a certain number of followers. And apparently now on Instagram, for some odd reason, need 8,000 followers to start lives. So, yes, it's becoming that Black Mirror future. So, if you can get people to follow me so I can get to 1,000, I can host. If not, no worries. We'll just have Andre update, though it will be slow to probably come on to my main account. In fact, right now while we speak, let me let my viewers know, if it will let me, to that we had to change the last thing. And I was here. It's always a technical difficulty with us in these lives. But to begin with, let's start off talking about Heat 2. It's moving forward for a summer 2026 premiere or filming. DiCaprio is in talks to play the lead. And actually, not Al Pacino or Robert De Niro's character, but Val Kilmer's character, as the book jumps in timelines. So obviously, he'd be playing. I guess he could play a younger or an older, but they're keeping Bradley Cooper attached just in case if Leo turns it down. And other cast members are said to be Adam Driver, um, Austin Butler, and even Adria Adorno, though at this point, isn't she talked about for almost everything anyway? And so, Andre, what are you thinking of this project? And
So I think right now what's really happening is Michael Mann's been striking out at the box office for the past couple of years. When you look at Black Hat, the recent Ferrari movie, as well as Public Enemies, his movies are very expensive to make because he's a very authentic filmmaker. He likes to get things very precise. He loves his big cast, but unfortunately, the movies are not as profitable. And Heat 2 requires a big budget, given that it is a 80s set period film, and so I guess Warner Brothers just doesn't want to spend the capital, given who runs that studio, and they figure maybe Amazon will give it a bite. So we'll see what happens on that front. As far as Leo goes, I'm not 100% certain he's playing any of the original characters, even though he may look like he could pass for Val Kilmer's role, or maybe even do something with his look to look like De Niro. I'm guessing he could be a completely new character. If Fashawn Keones likes to come on, I know he's read the book, so
oh
he would
yeah,
have a lot more insight than I do. But you know, it's not a movie I'm really screaming for, especially the way the book, from what I understand, goes back and forth from present to past. So that would have to require an 80-something Al Pacino to come back, and I don't know if that's really going to play well. And also has Val Kilmer's character returning, even though Val, rest in peace, is no longer with us. So I'm curious to see where they go with it, but I'm not really holding my breath that it could be anywhere the classic that the '95 movie was.
that's true. I think I'm just curious to see what happens because obviously with Michael Mann making another film, so much so that he even took his western he's been working on since the early 2000s and handed it off to Scott Cooper to direct. This is obviously something personal, but I fear could this be also Michael Mann's last hurrah?
He's up there in age, so it wouldn't surprise me if he wants to go out on a high note.
Exactly, and why not with this project that started off as since you couldn't get funding to make a Heat 2, Why not just, and you finally got it to be made? Now you can finally make your dream project go out, kind of big. So,
And so,
and
me.
go ahead. No,
No, you on.
no. I was just looking. Do I have any other notes upon this? Mm. Um, no, well, I don't. Do you have anything left to say about this story? Okay, I don't know. Did you ever see Honey Don't? Mm.
I have not seen Honey Don't.
Okay, well, get ready because Margaret Qualley and Aubrey Plaza are making another movie with Ethan Cohen and his partner, and it's going to be another queer film about a college lesbian rowing team that I guess basically they all reunite and then they start dying under mysterious circumstances. This one is said not to be so tied up in a crime comedy and more like a genre film, like women in nature trying to survive. I haven't seen Honey Don't, but I haven't heard good things. And this will be the third time Margaret Qualley has worked with Ethan Cohen and his partner. I'm interested if they can keep these series of films going because they're all underneath 20 million. So it's the closest to mid-budget studio, even though it's more independent comedies that we're getting. Maybe this will like make up for the second film, as their first film wasn't horrible, but also you expected more from the premise. So how are you feeling about this project?
I don't know. I didn't see Honey Don't, but I saw Ida Cohen's previous movie, Drive Away Dolls, and I was not impressed with it. We reviewed it on the show, and I just think he doesn't work unless it's both Cohen brothers. I'm sorry to say, there's just something when he's on his own. The magic's just not there, and I'm not excited to see another movie where, oh, it's the same crew, just a different story. No, I think you need to maybe make amends with your brother and get another classic under your belt because going solo, it's like with the Hughes brothers, the one that did Broken City, not so hot.
Yeah, has that one made any other films since then?
Not that I know of.
Uh, and remember, guys, anybody have a question, comment, we're open for them. I don't know if I'll see them. We're open.
Well, Yumi was on a few minutes ago.
Oh, yeah, then I can't see. Yes, I don't see anybody, so I don't know if this request to join will. No, it just keep taking me back
No.
to the. So, yep, you are the dungeon master now. Um, Next, I know this story you really wanted to talk about since yesterday, and that not only are we getting a live action Jetsons movie, but Jim Carrey is coming out of his semi retirement to star in this film. And that's kind of exciting, even if he's a little, older than you would expect. But I don't know. I mean, I'm happy Jim Carrey on the screen. But I'm just like, I don't know if this is the project we've all been waiting for. I mean, some diehard Hanna-Barbera people are interested as they almost made a film with Robert Rodriguez directing, but the whole premise was, what if all the inventions stopped working? Which kind of takes the specialness out of the project. And strangely enough, if they were going to make this, I saw sort of a Tim Allen starring in it. Not that I'm a big fan of his work, but hey, I like the Galaxy Quest like most people. What are you thinking about this Jim Carrey starring in Telly Trevorrow's live action?
Well, first of all, I'm shocked that not even Jim being in it, but the fact that it was even announced out of the blue because there was no word that a Jetsons movie was back in development. Hollywood's been trying to get a Jetsons movie made since 1985. In
Oh
fact, if
yes.
you YouTube, there's a Paramount's Future show reel that I guess they showed at Show West that year. So it has like all the early trailers for different movies. Some got made, some didn't. One of them was the Jetsons, and it was just a logo, and you hear the announcer guy from the movies just announcing, "Oh yeah, it's in development." And my understanding at the time was that they were looking at Chevy Chase for George and Shelley Long for Jane back in that time, but
What year
probably
was this
because
again? And
95.
I guess Chevy Chase still kind of had a career back then. And
Yeah, I guess there was an expense issue of how to pull it off back then, so that's when the rights went to Universal and they made the animated movie, which I did see in the theater as a kid. I even heard something from not John Campea, from Jeff Knight that Jim might not be playing George. He might be a completely different character, whether it's a villain, maybe Mr. Spacely, which would be odd because I think Peter Dinklage would probably kill it, or if they
okay.
paid money, Danny DeVito would be the ideal choice. But if it's Jim, I think it's a good choice. I think he could be like sort of rubbery, bouncing around the way George is in the cartoon. Then it's just a matter of who you get for Jane. That's got to be a pretty big star, and then maybe like a moderate star for Judy. You get an unknown for Elroy. And then you have to find somebody relatively big for Rosie, not Rosie O'Donnell, but somebody more relevant, maybe Octavia Spencer if they want to check the box.
Well, see, interestingly enough, if this had been made in '95 and they got Jim Carrey, Lauren Holly would have been a perfect Jane.
Oh,
You
I would
know,
think Cameron Diaz, if they were able to make her Jane-like, I don't know if she would do it. Also, too, Melissa McCarthy is Rosie.
that could work. A slightly smart mouth, Rosie. But I'm like, again, I can't think of whoever I guess has a big Instagram following will be Judy.
Yeah,
Probably somebody who's also a singer. I don't know little kid stars to play. Elroy, Judy. Knowing our luck for like Rosie, they'd get like some popular female comedian, to voice Rosie. A la Joan Rivers and Spaceballs, and or they could get the lady from the Goldbergs, who played the mother, to do the voice of Rosie. She would be not the worst choice in the world.
I
You
saw
know,
that.
or if this was back in the day, this goes back to my crush, Jennifer Love Hewitt as Jane. You know. Yeah. So let's move on to our next. Since we're talking about, I guess, upcoming movies, well, here's one that won't be happening. Disney to retire the Tron franchise after the latest film bombed. Honestly, I was shocked the third one even got made, and it seemed like it was more of a passion project for Jared Leto trying to prove that he has star power as a lead. Because realistically, when they even made the second Tron film, I always felt like that was more due to fan service and and fans wanting a sequel, and then they got it, and now nobody seemed to be like, you know what, we need another one. Because really the only good thing to come out of this film, it seems like, I say this because I haven't seen it, is the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack. I mean, that's the one thing everybody universally says is good about it. But other than that, it seems like, like it was like, why is this film even being made? And I'm wondering if this will put a stop to studios giving Jared Leto leading roles or acting like he's a star when he doesn't have the box office pull to back it up. Plus, he's controversial just in general and not in a good way, you know. So I don't know. What are you thinking about this? And
I'm not surprised. I mean, Jared Leto, I just took one look at that show. It's like, oh, the visuals look stunning, but I don't want to see it because I don't like the lead actor. I think there's something very disturbing and cult-like about him that prevents me from seeing it. And then, of course, Morbius left a bad taste in my mouth, so there was all the more reason I'm not going to spend money to see it. And the funny thing is, I'm not the biggest Tron fan in the world. I've always been an admirer for that rotoscope animation that they did in the original. And I even, well, I paid to see Tron Legacy when it came out because I thought that was going to be fire. You had the Daft Punk soundtrack, just the visuals, they look stunning. But that's all it is. It's all style, but not enough storytelling. And the storytelling is very basic. Jeff Bridges is always fun, but there's really nothing all that profound with him. And so, what were they expecting to get out of this? This is why I think this was kind of like Disney's attempt to say, well, we know we're kind of sliding with Star Wars, we know we're sliding with Marvel, so let's just go back to our old IP, see if we could breathe some life into it. And this just wasn't going to do it. And I think they overestimated the drawing power of Jared Leto.
as always, because I'm like, I'm just wondering, do they think Jared Leto helped like any of the films that he was kind of a big co-star or his name was like? Did it help Suicide Squad? His little cameo, did well, he wasn't really into much of Birds of Prey, so. But I'm just saying, in general, he's not really helping. I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's a bad actor or that he shouldn't work, but I just think for a guy, I mean, I know he's an Oscar winner, but for a guy who hasn't really had a hit movie based just off of his name, I mean, pretty much ever since Requiem for a Dream, he's been getting leads, but none of these movies just based on his name have been hits. Like even when they gave him those like weird straight to home video films like what was it, Mr. Nobody. It's like, why is he getting all these leading roles? When and he also seems like he wants to be a character actor more, which it might try to help explain that role in that Denzel Washington movie with Rami Malek. So yeah, I don't get it, but. Mia Goth is keeping your Blade movie alive, saying that they do still want to make it. They're just trying to get it right. That's the reason. I don't doubt that eventually a Blade movie will be made, but I doubt at this point Mahershala Ali will be starring in it.
I
What are
don't
you?
see it either. I
Uh,
think that they're just trying to gaslight and still say, oh, yeah, no, it's happening. It's definitely happening. They may still be under a contract to a point, and if they don't do it at a certain year, then they'll probably back out, and then they'll say, oh, yeah, we're not doing this. But I know Ali, when the recent Jurassic Park movie came out, he even did a thing where I guess he got asked about it. It's like, hey, Marvel, call me, as if they haven't spoken to him in some time. Yeah, Vashon, I don't believe they're trying to get it right. They're simply trying to, kick the bucket down the road. And I just like you. I think the closest this was supposed to happen was before the strikes, and then they realized the script wasn't ready. Ali didn't like the script, and so it's going to be either it's going to happen with him, and they get a director, and everything is on the right track, or it's simply we're just going to start this shit over with a whole new team, and it's going to fit the new direction of the MCU when that happens.
well, I would like to see it, but I don't know if we're going to see it in this timeline or lifeline. Well, I mean, I'm sure before
Oh,
we're in our
lifetime.
80s, we'll see it.
I mean, who knows? Be quiet and say that he'll be in Secret Wars or Doomsday, but they just want to keep it at a tight lid because, from what I understand, all those chairs they showed in that teaser, there's supposed to be more names coming.
Well, I think they're trying to like keep it secret. It's sort of like Leo DiCaprio being on the fence about his cameo in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The door is open and they're willing to pay him $3 million supposedly for one day's work, but he has always said he never wanted to do a sequel, which is why he's still cagey on Heat 2 also. But I feel like, is it just cagey to keep, the movie people foaming at the mouth like he's got to be in the sequel, and then surprise, he is. Sort of like when they were doing the I Know What You Did Last Summer, like, oh, maybe Sarah Michelle Gellar might have a cameo. Maybe Brandy has a cameo. And it's like, you knew they did because they're the only ones bringing it up. So, I'm wondering if it's a
Sean,
six.
while we on,
Well,
we did talk about Heat 2, so let us know if you think that DiCaprio is playing an original character or one of the famous roles from the original.
because supposedly he's supposed to be playing Val Kilmer's role. Up next, since we were talking about MCU and black superheroes, Ryan Coogler says definitely his next project is rebooting the X Files. And now he might have a cast member attached, Daniel Deadweiler, as one of the characters. This doesn't seem like a movie project specifically. It seems like this is might be his first television project, just rebooting it because he has to deliver Black Panther 3, I believe by summer either 2027 or 2028. But he said that this is definitely his next project. I'll admit I'm not a big X Files fan, but I did watch episodes back in the day. And this is kind of exciting, but I'm just hoping that it won't be labeled in Hollywood, though we all know it will be the black version of, the X Files. Because my thing is, as long as it delivers good sci-fi, but that can be explained by logic stories, I'm all for it. Again, I've watched a few episodes. I'll admit I prefer probably more of the comedic episodes than the conspiracy theory episodes. But I'm kind of excited because this is would really be his first kind of stab at television too. How are you feeling about this story?
Personally, I don't care. I am
Damn.
looking I look like Coogler, and I'm just like, stop taking IPs. You're too talented for that. I mean, for every Black Panther and Sinners, and yes, you knocked it out the park with Creed, but everything else I heard, he was supposed to do a Coming to America sequel before Eddie
No,
decided to do it
okay, I
else.
gotta say
He
no.
wrote Space Jam 2, right? Yes, for Sean, it's going to be the fucking Black Files. Like, do original shit. You got the clout. Do something else. Stop piggybacking on old properties.
Well, maybe he's trying to do like what Michael Jordan seems to be trying to do, have that backup clout so that when he does have an original project, he can say, well, I gave you this, this, and this, so let me go do this. I think I know what I'm doing. I'm just saying, I just don't think he was dreaming like, ooh, I'd really like to make another, Black Panther movie, or I'd really like, you know what we need? Creed 4, baby. I really like to think he's just building, his brand so that he can make originals. If you want to call me an apologist, I am. I'm just saying. Because I can't see comments, so I don't know what's going on in these conversations.
Well, some
So,
files is a little boring.
I can see that for some people, but other than when we're shoehorned into already existing IPs, is there any really too much African American or minority driven sci-fi?
Mantis.
And exactly. Or when they adapt Octavia Butler stories in books. That seems to be about it. So, um, our next story. Oh, jeez. The Beatles project that Sam Mendes is getting $400 million for because each film will be $100 million, and it's by each film will have a different screenwriter, so they can tell the Rashomon rise and fall of the Beatles. But I never get this woman's name right. Saoirse Ronan will be playing Linda McCartney, and I guess across all four films. I mean, it's not really that big a story, but there has been casting because I think it's going to take 15 months for them to make all four films, all directed by Sam Mendes, and it starts next year. Do you have any commentary on this or
No,
thoughts?
I have no
Okay,
thoughts.
next. Hey, I got 3 pages of stories here, guys, so we're moving unless you guys are commenting. Tangled live action remake because Disney's live action remakes are so well done. Will star Scarlett Johansson in a key role. Wonder if that means lead. Any thoughts, ideas?
Uh, Good choice. He'll probably have some drawing power because she's in it. Otherwise, I've never seen Tangled.
Oh, honestly, yeah, I haven't either. I've seen Brave, but I haven't seen that one. Now here's one that's gonna get us talking. Michael, the Michael Jackson biofilm, has apparently been cut in half because part two they can't air due to a rights issues with one of Jackson's accusers, so they can't really talk about like the downfall. So they're going to make this biofilm that concludes with him more his rise through the 1980s. Now, here's the tricky part. If the film is popular enough, they're going to do a sequel that focuses on his years as the king of pop. So what was supposed to be a 4-hour film looks like it's going to be a standard 2-hour rise of film. Um, and I know, you have been following this project closely. So how do you feel about these latest things that are coming up with it?
Well, since we have an audience of three, I'm going to say what basically happened. So the writer John Logan, he did probably like 5 years of research into Michael Jackson's life when he wrote the script. And he came away with the conclusion based on all the stuff that's come out about, all these allegations against him. He didn't believe any of them, that it was simply an extortion scheme. So,
Hmm.
the way the script was written and intended was to show, like they had announced Derek Luke was cast as Johnny Cochran. They were going to show that when the accusation in 93 happened, that Michael was in fact ready to fight it. And there was a thing with the Anthony Pelicano tapes of the father and how he was plotting and all that stuff. So the fact was that Michael wanted to go to trial, but Johnny Cochran felt if they settled, then they would basically make more money from a settlement as opposed to the expense and length to an ongoing trial. And yes, there are so many layers to Michael that I don't think you could really compact in a 2 hour movie. That's just my opinion. And I definitely know that that's what they were filming up until they had this oversight about the settlement, that the settlement called for no discussion or adaptation of these particular allegations and events. And so, really, Michael was just talked by lawyers like this is a speed bump, just pay it off and get on with your life. And they were going to show how that was detrimental to his career. But because of the terms, that got into the way of the production, and they had to like either scrap it or have to rewrite everything to not acknowledge it. So this is where we are now. Is now they just want to focus on the high points and maybe very little the ugly points from later on.
So it's more like a crowd pleasing tale than anything else, or
And you
highlight
know
reel.
what? That's what it should be. I mean, I think it should really be about the man and what goes on behind closed doors with his father's issues, the making of the songs, what made this shy kid from Gary, Indiana, become the biggest pop star in the world. I think that's really what it needs to be about. But yeah, I feel like because of all the controversies with all the legal issues, it may just be like greatest hits, which I think will kind of shortchange the film. I hope not, but that's what I'm fearing.
Well, I mean, as I've said previously, all the people they keep making these biofilms about, there's so much more to their stories, like the Whitney Houston, the Aretha Franklin, definitely the James Brown, which seems like it wanted to focus more on the bad side of them than, what made them so legendary and great. So this just seems like it's, I guess, par for the course, but geez, this has to be like the most expensive version that they've ever done, where it's like, hey, we got to cut all this stuff for legal reasons. So, and referring to the three viewers we have, hey, this is like some of the highest numbers we've ever gotten for a live episode. As I know that mainly people watch this in the rewatch when we post them. So we want to thank you for watching and commenting, even though I can't see who's there or the comments. Hopefully, if you guys help us get to, or at least get me to 1,000 followers, I can host again. But until then, we're probably going to do on AJ Epics. Who is the more technical person? Jeez, I said that and everybody left. So maybe I will stop referring to the crowd. Um, Now, they're recasting Jesus Christ for the Passion of the Christ sequel. James Caviezel will not be playing Jesus. And I believe the original plan was they were going to de-age him, considering the sequel takes place right after the first film. And now they've gotten some Norwegian actor, Joako Oton, will be the new Jesus. I'm just wondering, like, did Mel Gibson give him a religion test to play this role? Because it just feels like we're going younger. It feels like James Caviezel failed the Hollywood test, where it's like, nah, man, you're too old now. We're not even de-aging you. We're just gonna get a new, guy to play you. Which I guess, because there's about the resurrection, kind of works. Maybe that was his thinking because even though you guys don't see this episode for a while, I was thinking the same thing about I Know What You Did Last Summer, the reboot. Maybe they, a spoiler alert, since the fate of Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character. If they would have gotten another actor, at first everybody would be like, "How dare you recast?" But it'd be like, he's a different person, even though he's playing the same person. So I thought about that. Wild idea. But how are you feeling, or do you even care that they've gotten this new actor to play JC?
They should title this The Passion of Christ 2 Electric Boogaloo or The Passion of Christ 2 How Jesus Got His Groove Back. I mean, this is so ridiculous. But yeah, I did read that Mel was recasting everybody that's supposed to be from the original. And from what I read, from according to a source, they were currently meeting with actors in Rome and they switched it up because they had a lot of work to do with the original actors, specifically digital stuff, as you mentioned, with trying to de-age them. And there was a lot of back and forth. So that's why we don't have Jim Caviezel, who will probably doing Angel Studios' next production, Bible Man the movie. So that's what happened.
His career's not that bad, but I always wondered, like, was James Caviezel after that film only going to do like Christian or movies that led into Christian themes? Because he did Frequency, wasn't that offensive and kind of went with his beliefs. So couldn't he just seek out maybe more screenplays like that?
Hell, if that's the case, if Mel can't get Lethal Weapon 5, he remakes it with Kirk Cameron and Dion Taylor.
Who
Dion
the heck?
Richmond.
Okay, guys, I was gonna say, who's Dion Taylor, the director? I was gonna say, you gave him a come up. He's like, I direct films, now I'm co-starring. you know, um, yeah, it's like,
The
Mel, maybe
Christian
this.
buddy.
Well, why not make an original? Hey, maybe that's what these Christian film makers need to do. Make a buddy comedy. Since, everybody complains Christians don't have senses of humor, and they'll like, we'll show them. And John Voight can be the captain. And Mel can be like the SWAT team expert, or hey, he doesn't mind. Let him be the villain. He's like, hey, I'm going to teach you the evils of watching rated R television. You mean half the movies I starred in? Or smoking, or being open to minorities if you go by the Charlie Kirk.
Or
you know,
not married to.
or how all these drag queens are trying to take and groom your children. It's like, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not those people who are actually molesting them who are doing that. But anyway, this isn't a political show. So for our next story, unfortunately, we got to do the down period. Unfortunately, living legend actress Diane Keaton has passed away. Star of many films over the years, Family Stone, Godfather 1, 2, and 3. She was also looking for Mr. Goodbar, which is, the infamous film many people will remember her for, or her movies with Woody Allen, Annie Hall, Manhattan Murder Mystery, which kind of sounds like, a sequel, but has nothing to do. Uh, and one of my favorites of her performances, I don't love this movie, but she was really good in Marvin's Room, which had Robert De Niro, Meryl Streep, Leo DiCaprio. But I all felt like all of them were acting, and she was the only person in the film giving a heartfelt, real performance in that film. So that is one film I would tell everybody to go out if they want to honor her memory and want to celebrate her. Watch that film just for her performance. I believe she might have gotten an Oscar nomination for that role too. And I mean, of course, everybody remembers her from First Wives Club, where she surprised me at being a standout because you knew Goldie Hawn and Bette Midler had the big personalities, but here she comes and, playing this character who's always nervous and then, is really funny in the film. And, I know later in life she was one of those people who's co-starred in all these female buddy comedies of all those types. But she will be missed. And let's not forget, she was an accomplished director. Unstrung Heroes, she directed. An episode of Twin Peaks, So she did direct and write. And she made a lot of money, I think, flipping houses and interior design. I will say, one of her most celebrated films, was it Something's Gotta Give? I didn't
Oh, yeah.
love. But I respect the film for what it's trying to say. And I love Baby Boom. That was the first one I remember seeing her in. And I feel like it still stands up and, it's perfect for her. Do you have any memories or things you want to say about the passing of Diane Keaton?
Everything you said, and I love her performance in Annie Hall, even though I've never watched a lot of Woody Allen movies, but that's the one that stands out the most to me. Looking for Mr. Goodbar, I remember looking for that for a long time until somebody put it up on YouTube. And yeah, it is disturbing, but she is excellent in it. I wrote a Collider article about it a couple of months ago, that out, and really highlighting her performance, how she was sort of going against the sort of feminist personality that she had back in those days. So that's one that I think is very underrated, simply because
Hmm.
it's hard to find. Yeah, something's got to give. She was very gorgeous in that. Obviously, having to play up the romance with Jack Nicholson, and they work great together. Um, and then little things that she did too in the later part of her career. There was like she used to do like those yogurt ads that I would see all the time. Uh,
What's with you in these commercials of these people?
no, it
Okay.
was this was like an American ad. You know, she had that stuff. And there's this movie I saw on Tubi that came out a couple of years ago. It's not a comedy and it's not like a straight drama. It's like a crime thriller, and she's in it. I don't remember the name, but she's like the mother of a son who's dealing drugs, and she gets kind of wrapped up in this criminal underworld. And I mean, it's Diane Keaton with the glasses and everything, but it's like a serious part, more like the stuff like Godfather. And that kind of surprised me that she would still do those type of movies at her age. But without a doubt, an icon, an inspiration to so many actresses next to Meryl Streep, like one of the highlights of the 70s, and absolutely a screen presence that's going to be missed.
I agree. She played unlikable roles, but she never played an out and out villain. That would
Right.
have been interesting. Not like Susan Sarandon in Blue Beetle, but like a villainous,
No.
like if she was a crime boss or at the end of a mystery, like she should have been in Only Murders in the Building and been the killer. That would have been interesting. Missed opportunity. She'll be missed. A living legend. Unfortunately, also Drew Strutson. Uh,
Yeah.
Movie poster artist extraordinaire. Even if you didn't know him, you know his work. Think of posters of Back to the Future, The Goonies, which is one of my favorite of all of his work, Indiana Jones movies, the prequels of Star Wars. Plenty of movies. Oh, The Thing. Some John Carpenter. Big Trouble in Little China, he designed the poster for. And, just another true artist. He might not have been a filmmaker, but he did release his creativity upon the world. And we're losing, we lost, I should say, a truly gifted artist and a part of Hollywood history. So, unfortunately, he passed away. Do you have any remembrances or comments on his passing?
I have two things to say about Drew. One thing is reading this book on the Back to the Future trilogy, there's a story about when obviously he did the first film and then he did the sequels. But when they were doing the poster for the second movie, they had Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd at the studio having to do like the pose and having to hold it for a long time when they're like looking at the watches, saying like they're staying by DeLorean. And Drew Struzan, typically, I don't think he's usually there when the actors are there doing the artwork, but in
Okay.
this case, he was specifically requested to be there. And the reason why was because Michael J. Fox was just so blown away by his work. He simply just wanted to meet the guy, shake his hand, and just say thank you for the great work that you've done. So even the actors always appreciated how he could highlight those films and the way that they look to make them look larger than life. And this adds to the second point, which is the kind of artwork that he did for movie posters is such a lost art today.
Yes.
It's now where it's all like heavy duty Photoshop. And listen, I do it myself. I'm not going to lie because it's the easiest and cheapest way to go. But there was something about when you saw the posters for those movies that you wanted to see that film, that it looked so huge, so epic, and something unlike anything you've ever seen before, that poster you didn't just want that to be the thing to get you into the movie. You wanted that for the box cover. You want to hang that up in your room. There was even like those live action dioramas that they have that like McFarlane Toys does. And when you see stuff like that, even like the Goonies posters, there's like variants of them where
Hmm.
the Goonies is different for each one. That's how amazing it is to seek out that stuff. I don't. I think I have the Raiders of the Lost Ark poster in my room that he did. It's also a really great piece. And so, yeah, that's the kind of art for a poster I wish they could bring back for movies. Even
I
like when they
agree.
tried to do Last Indiana Jones, it wasn't him, it was somebody else. It was not as good. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's something cinema needs again. I think that's what could save cinemas is that style of artwork for a poster and not just slapping somebody's face on there and photoshopping the hell out of it or putting fake tits on an actress with small tits.
Oh, okay. But I agree with you where I feel like that there's a lack of care that is happening now.
It's
They,
also
yeah, because they keep saying, "Oh, we spent 70 million on promotion," but it's like, what promotion? Just putting out commercials? You don't have. Well, there's barely any radio left to do radio ads. You would think as much time even for these films, which some, let's face it, are disposable, puts time and care even just in promoting it, and maybe that might inspire people to want to go see the films. I mean, obviously, also stop with this 30-day window, make it longer, but also just show like we're putting out something that we care about instead of it's just off the assembly line, a means to an end. Show some imagination and originality. And, that would be nice. And I feel like you said, that's a lost art in of itself. The showmanship is going. And so, of course, everybody's going to want to watch it on a screen, a small screen where it was never meant to be watched in the first place. And it becomes content rather than, actual art. And
exactly.
next on our, you know, rest in peace to both of them. Um, our next story, we're going to talk about wow, Kiss of the Spider Woman with Jennifer Lopez that had a $50 million budget. It was the musical version of the remake of the Raul Julia movie. And they even playing an Oscar campaign bombed. It did not even make $1 million in its opening weekend. Though I will say I didn't see it promoted anywhere either. And this is bombing bigger than Spinal Tap 2 from a few weeks ago. So I'm just like, does this mean they're going to stop funding Jennifer Lopez movies altogether? Because she's kind of like the Jared Leto female version, except, at least some of her movies made money. So it's like, is she only going to be offered roles where she's part of an ensemble rather than the star? Or what do you think the ramifications of this might be?
I think that it's just going to be Hollywood taking less chances on those type of movies, especially something that's very heavy in the sexual content, especially male on male romance. And certainly Jennifer Lopez just wasn't enough to elevate it to bring the audience in. I mean, and listen, you don't have William Hurt, you don't have Raul Julia, it's just another adaptation that, in my view, from looking at the trailer, it looked too sleek anyway. It didn't really feel like it was a true remake. Like I would
Well, it is
keep
a
it,
musical,
yeah,
too.
I mean, kept it dark and gritty as the original one. And once you throw J Lo in there, then yeah, it's going to be like Nine or Wicked. It's just going to be more splashy. And no, that's not Kiss of the Spider Woman, unfortunately.
It needed maybe more of a song that would be a hit single for her. Like, remember how everybody went to go see Evita after hearing "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina"?
Yeah.
Even though I still to this day, even though I love Alan Parker as a director, I still have never watched Evita. Just saying, just putting that out
I
there.
don't either.
Here's one you might enjoy: M. Night Shyamalan is working with Mattel Films to make a Magic 8 Ball, not movie, but TV series. And
How do you stretch that out as a TV series?
Maybe it'll be an anthology. Each week somebody gets a hold of this magic. It'll be like Friday the 13th, the series. We've got to find this cursed magic 8 ball where the fortunes come true. If or it hypnotizes the person to only follow its advice. I don't know.
That's
I'm not in
your
these pit.
brother.
I'm just like M Night Shyamalan. Why out of all the why get lazy now? Like be like, hey, I'm working on this magic 8 ball. Does he really think this will be the new Barbie? And yeah, I'm
It's
just
not.
like, I mean, I guess weirder things or stranger things have happened like this show, but I'm like, are you looking forward to this project? I didn't think so. Well, next we can talk about. Oh, well, to continue with this story, they still have John M. Chu for a Hot Wheels film that they never made. And they're still planning Polly Pocket, Bob the Builder, Thomas and Friends, Uno. That one, I want to know how that one's going to work. And Barney, still with Io Ataberry, signed on to star. And so, yeah, you have all those to look forward to, guys. Next, we have the new trailer for Running Man has come out where it shows it won't follow the book exactly, nor will it follow the Arnold Schwarzenegger film exactly, where it looks like it's a mix of Home Alone, with Michael Cera co-starring as like, I guess he's supposed to represent the rebel force and helping him throughout this because now he has to serve. Glenn Powell's character has to survive 30 days without being murdered, and Josh Brolin as the villain and William H Macy seems like he's playing the fence. I have hope in this project just because Edgar Wright is making, and also his usual co-writer Michael Bacall worked on the script with him, so I'm kind of looking forward to this. Watching it, I was like, okay, it kind of looks a little mindless, but it looks like something you can go into the theater and just enjoy, even if just style wise, because it kind of reminds you of those kind of '80s action films. How did you see the new trailer?
I didn't see the new trailer, but I've seen some clips. I know they at Comic Con they had a panel for it, and it's another one that it has me very curious. I never felt that the Schwarzenegger movie was the sacred cow. There was still problems with it, even though he's very entertaining. Um, and of all the movies that Arnold ever did, that one definitely needed a reboot treatment. And so you got a good director, you have a reliable leading man, and a pretty good ensemble with Brolin, Coleman Domingo, and Michael Cera, I guess, playing the Mick Fleetwood part. So I think there is potential here for it to actually surprise people. And I don't want it to become a franchise. I think it could just be
Yeah.
one and done book. But I see a lot of good possibilities for this one as just a solid, entertaining action film.
Well, I'm hoping it's obviously better than that Aquafina John Cena lottery comedy they did
Oh,
2 years ago. As long as it's better than that, that is the thing you have to beat, which I don't think will be that hard. Um, Next, we kind of have to talk about this. They're going to make an Ocean's 11 prequel with Lee Isaac Chung directing, who made Twisters. Originally, it was supposed to be Jay Roach directing with Ryan Gosling, but now it's going to star Bradley Cooper and Margot Robbie, but not as Danny Ocean and his sister. Actually, the parents of Danny Ocean and his sister, who I guess they're playing their parents, who passed down the whole con game to them, and it's going to be set in the 1960s, and it's going to be, of course, a con man film. And I hate to say it, I'm kind of looking forward to this. I'm not the biggest Bradley Cooper fan. I do think he has talent, and I'd rather him star in movies than keep trying to direct them. So it's nice he finally got a starring role because Michael Mann will be stuck with him if it's like, hey, DiCaprio signed on. What do we do with Cooper? Hey, go make that prequel. So I'm looking forward kind of to this. I'll admit I'd rather see a trailer first to see how this works because this could be great, but this could be that Colin Firth Cameron Diaz movie, Gambit, or the remake, that didn't quite work. But simultaneously, they're also planning on doing an Ocean's 14 sequel, even though Steven Soderbergh has no interest in coming back to direct it, which makes me wonder, does this mean George Clooney is going to want to direct it? What are you, how are you taking any of this news on
I don't
the, seriously, no interest at all?
know. I didn't like the second Oceans. I thought the third one was just fine. I don't care for this shit. I didn't even see the one with all the women.
Okay, hey, I like the franchise. I like that it still has somewhat a charm to it, and I'm in the minority, probably next to maybe the people who were in it. I like the second film, but again, I liked it more because it was stylish more than anything, not for the actual story. But I still like the film, and I still play the soundtrack to this day. So, our next story, I mean, this is a rumor that the X-Men reboot will come out on May 5th, 2028. I mean, there's always the rumors of who's casting, but this so far seems to be the one thing they've set in stone is the release date. And since you're more of the Marvel person, any commentary or thoughts upon this?
So yeah, this kind of lines up with where I think Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to go. That's going to be a fully new slate for the MCU. Again, they may keep some characters and actors, and then others will be completely rebooted. But no doubt, the next phase is going to start with X-Men, and it's going to be a new take. And my understanding, at least there's been a rumor now that they are keeping Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. They're not recasting the part, but that remains to be seen. And we know Jake Schur's directing. We know the guy that wrote the recent Hunger Games is the writer. So it all lines up as this is the one that's going to probably wipe the slates clean, maybe get Marvel back on track. But I'm not even 100% sure of that either because I just think people have checked out. So when you go and you see these Marvel movies and they do well opening weekend, that's really the hardcore fans coming out, and then the general audience pretty much just stays home and waits for Disney Plus. Um, they got a lot of work to do these next 2 years to get people excited again.
I think they will because no matter what the thing of Marvel, I think there's a certain amount of audience that will just come out, especially with this reinterpretation of I guess the characters and the movie. Now here's one that's going to be interesting. Kevin Costner is still determined to make Horizon 3. Because wasn't there supposed to be four of them? Or was the
Yeah.
third one? Okay. And he's even gone as far as to go to Saudi investors. And I believe Variety had a whole big story about Kevin Costner over the years and, like suing his producing partners, always being determined to make these projects. Half this stuff, I will admit, I didn't know because I don't really pay attention to Kevin Costner. Because I was just happy or surprised that he's lasted this long. He's a good actor. I will say, a talented director. He's not like one of my favorites, but he's always had this kind of bullish determination where he's also always tried to seem like the guy next door. But then you hear stories, and it's just like he's just he's not agreeable. Let me put it to you that way. And he doesn't seem to have as much of a sense of humor about himself, a la maybe a Mel Gibson does at times. He just seems like, no, I'm the shit. Everything must go on. Like reading about what happened with him and Wes Bentley on Yellowstone, where they
Yeah.
actually got into a real fight. Like this stuff is kind of revealing. Well, before you even give your commentary, do you think he will be able to ever make Horizon 3?
No, I don't believe you will.
And do you think it will be one of those great, how we talk about like Stanley Kubrick not making Napoleon? Do you think this is going to be one of those great lost, never made films?
I think so.
You really think okay, I guess let me construct this question. Do you think if he got the money to it, do you think it's going to be the masterpiece he seems to think it's going to be?
Because I saw Horizon, and here's the thing. And I read that same article and I read the entire piece. I feel that there was a time he had great instincts.
Okay.
Everybody counting him out when he did Dances with Wolves. They thought that was going to be the killer of his career. They were calling it Kevin's Gate. And then he showed enough with the footage that he could get the funding from a studio to finish the rest of the movie. It becomes this huge hit. He wins the Oscar, and it's an instant classic. Since that time, okay, Robin Hood was a hit, but it was trashed by the critics, especially with the accent. The
Mm-hmm.
Bodyguard, a ton of money, greatest soundtrack of all time, but it was also trashed by critics too. JFK worked. He was in that as ensemble piece, but then afterwards, it just kind of slid down for him. I think he expected to get like a Tom Hanks kind of career, to be like this great American actor that everybody can look up to, and instead you're doing over bloated movies like Wyatt Earp and boring the piss out of people compared to what Kurt Russell did in Tombstone.
Tombstone.
And then feuding with him later when you do 3,000 Miles of Graceland, they're probably having a dick measuring contest over who had the better Wyatt Earp movie. Uh, and from there, you're hit and miss. Like, okay, Tin Cup does well, but then you do The Postman, Waterworld's a disaster. And all in all, like, those movies that he seems to bank on end up not doing well because he thinks he's making these great pictures, but for the rest of the audience, they're slow, they're boring, and they're not interesting. And Horizon, I watched part one. He doesn't show up for like an hour into the film. And most of the first hour is these Native Americans killing a bunch of white people in a town that they settled in. And so I get what he's kind of trying to do. He wants to do this vast production, but I think you were better off when you did Hatfield and McCoy's as like a multi-part
Oh yeah.
series. And
Mm.
it was so well received, great ratings, or to do something like Yellowstone, which brought you back, and you squandered that because you couldn't get along with Taylor Sheridan and you're fighting with the actors. So, like, you know what, the hell with this. I'm going to go make my Horizon movie. And it's sad to even hear in that same article that, yes, he's trying to talk to some Saudi producers about giving him the funds. He's been doing these speaking engagements, and not necessarily like at art galleries or any high-end places or going to film festivals. He's going to like dog shows and being paid to have conversations with people. He's that hard up for money to try to make this Horizon thing happen. It's not happening. You were better off doing this as a Netflix series, or
True.
maybe finish Yellowstone because you only had like what, 1 or 2 seasons left of that.
Yeah.
Then maybe cut a deal with Paramount or one of the other networks to do your Horizon as a series as opposed to a 4-part movie. He doesn't understand it's not 1991 anymore. People are not going to run out. And as much as I love westerns, and I've been struggling to get a western off the ground myself, they're not going to run out to see 7-year-old Kevin Costner trying to do Dances with Wolves all over again. It's a different marketplace. It's a different audience. And I think he still believes in his mind and in his heart, he's still that guy. He's not.
Unfortunately, I think he's his only audience. That's the problem. He's the
Exactly.
only. He's the only one who wants to see like Horizon end, and I feel like he might have to make it three and four as one movie to even get it done. Or maybe he can make a deal with the network, like let me make, like you said, let me make the third part of Horizon just a series, just so I can end it. You know.
Just take what you did with the first one, cut it up into a series, and then take the unreleased second part and whatever you got left of three, and do that as like 3, 4 seasons of a show. It's not that hard to do if you cut a deal. And the other thing I'll just say to kind of close it off, he makes a damn good coffee brand.
Oh, sorry, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't know. It would
It's the
almost be like
Horizon.
it'll be like the Snyder cut, the dyslexic version. Um, but okay, our next story. Tilly Norwood, the AI actress, actually got signed to a a talent agency, and everybody is up in arms about it. I think this is the stupidest thing in the world, you know. But unfortunately, it shows how willing studio and the industry is to replacing live actors with just technology. It's just as we were talking about a film that we're going to review in the future, Play Dirty. Like, if you use practical effects, maybe the film would have been, at least quality wise, a little bit better. But they include all this AI special effects that looks horrible and you can't really take seriously. Or even in the early days of CGI, look at an American Werewolf in Paris versus an American Werewolf in London. American Werewolf in Paris is horrible because of all the digital special effects at the time that they use, that it looks like a really bad animated movie that happens to have live action in it rather than just a really good horror film.
Yeah, this is an embarrassment to the industry, but also not surprising given many years ago we had a movie called Simone with Al Pacino that pretty much
Oh,
did exactly what's happening right now. Although in that film it was kept a secret. Here it's already out in the open. This backfire. And as we were having a discussion with one of our friends yesterday, I think, listen, there are pros and cons with the AI craze, but I think there is a bubble that's about to burst, and it's not going to look good for Hollywood.
unfortunately. Well, I'm going to ask you, the holidays are coming up, and a certain movie is coming out. Quentin Tarantino's 4 hour Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair is coming out. That includes a 7.5 minute animated sequence that no one's ever seen. But basically, it's the first two films stitched together without the cliffhanger or the opening, you know, where she explains everything in part two. Are you going to go see this 4 hour film in theaters?
I like the Kill Bill movies. I don't know. I mean, unless I had like a group of friends with me to see it, I don't know if I'd really sit through the whole 4 hours.
I am of the same thing. This seems like a group outing more than like, oh, I have to see it. I would like to see, you know, that 7.5 minute sequence. And I do love both films and their soundtracks. Because as you were saying earlier, I feel like there were a lot of up and coming directors like Sofia Coppola, Quentin Tarantino, Wes Anderson and Paul Thomas Anderson, that when their soundtracks came out, it was almost like a jukebox of old classic songs from artists maybe you never even heard of. But as they got more established, they became more pure film scores, you know, less jukebox hits. And that was one of the things I appreciate about one battle after another was you got a great Johnny Greenwood score, but you also still got those jukebox hits that helped set the mood. And Kill Bill, I remember being one of Quentin Tarantino's last ones that really had, you know, wasn't just score. It actually had older songs. It even used theme songs on the soundtrack. And, you know, I appreciate it because I feel like that was one of, I'm like, he's made great films since. But I don't know, there's something maybe a little bit that has been lost since that film, those films came out. And so I will try to see it. 4 hours is long, and depending where I'm going to see it, preferably at a theater I didn't have a bad experience at, but all those have the best screening. So I'm not mentioning any names. You can all look it up or watch past episodes. Um, Next, because I know, yeah, we're coming to the end, so I want to get the big stories out. So Arnaldo Iannucci, who friend of the show, Brittany Carney loves uh, his style of comedies like Death of Stalin, political satires. He is having a hard time because his next film, he wants to make a satire of Donald Trump, which obviously is going to cause controversy. But I mean, can you really make a satire these days when what you would satire is actually happening? And I know you know, you don't watch usually his type of political humor, but do you have anything to say of the state of this?
Not really.
Okay, I just thought I'd bring it up. Gareth Evans, I guess, still smarting over kind of the mixed reaction to Havoc, has finished his remake of the film "A Cult Is My Passport," with Tim Roth, Jack Rayner, and an actor me and friend and a friend and former cinephile Eric Cohen loves, Sophie Derisu, who starred in Gangs of London as the star of this film. I'm looking forward to this film because I still think Gareth Evans is still a great director. But and I've never seen this film, so I'm wondering if I should watch it beforehand or watch it more after I see Gareth Evans' version. Any commentary on this one?
No, you have to see it.
Yeah, it's more folks. When it comes to the more indie, Andre's like, take and go, cut and paste. We'll see how it goes. Here's one I know you have comment on, and this will be one of our last of 2 or 3 stories, depending how long the conversation lasts. Fast and Furious 11 is in limbo because the studio is demanding 150 million in cuts to the budget, and the last movie went past its $300 million budget, which caused it to lose Justin Lin as director, and we had Louis Leterrier, and Vin Diesel wants more control of these films. Mind you, he makes $25 million on all of these films. Is it family first? Is he sharing it with his co-stars? I'm putting my money as no. And I guess because this is put on hold, this is why we're getting The Last Witch Hunter Part 2. Because he needs a franchise in it. Do you have any content? Because I gave up on these films a long time ago. Do you have any commentary on this Fast and Furious 11 fiasco? Mm.
Yeah, that they're a victim of their own success. And the last movie, I could even sit through it because it was just, this was the point where I think the Ritalin was dialed up to 11 and they could not bring the high down. And so now they're in a bad spot where they have all these loose ends, all these cliffhangers that I think they were expecting to pay off in part 2 or Fast 11. And they're not going to be able to do it because Universal is basically putting the hammer down saying, listen, it's got to be less than 200 million. We're not spending more than that. And that's going to require less of the exotic locations. All these big stars you've been signing, like John Cena and Brie Larson, we're going to have to start cutting some waste here, that we can't have them all back. You want the family's got to be a little bit condensed. You're talking about trying to bring back Paul Walker from the dead, de-aged, and no, we're
No.
not spending waiters' money again to have them bring him back. Fuck that shit. So yeah, you have to go back to basics if you're going to try to like conclude the franchise. Otherwise, I think they're having a very hard push with Vin Diesel to try to do it the way he wants to do it and compromise. And what makes it so horrible is how he and Tyrese and some of these other actors are constantly going on social media teasing and showing pictures and making it seem like we're about to go into production. Like, no, you're nowhere near this thing. Not until you cut the cost down, dude. So this is just one of those many examples of Hollywood and their wasteful spending. Now they've realized it's time to come home. They need to start making movies at a budget again and not this freewheeling spending that they've been doing on all these IPs, because China's still screwed and they're not making the billions like they once did unless it's something random like Minecraft. And Fast and Furious, people are just fatigued now. They don't want the same mindless entertainment shit. And all you need to do is look at Jason Momoa, and if he tells you he hasn't seen a script, this movie's not happening anytime soon.
True, but Tyrese does need his Benihana in the back of his house, so his movie has to get
You
made.
want a Betty Hot? Go make another Waist Deep.
That's true. Or an original movie for once that doesn't go straight to streaming, though. I think Tyrese, if he wants to save his career, maybe he should try being more of a character actor rather than having to star in everything, or at least be a villain in something. To something big budget. Be the villain in I was gonna say Tyrese too. Be the villain in Minecraft too, and show you have a sense of humor and don't take yourself so seriously. Maybe that. It's not like you're gonna be in a Tom Hanks movie. And
Well, he
that
was
was
always putting his eggs into that Teddy Pendergrass biopic he was attached to, but the estate issues have prevented that from happening.
He could try doing like that Andre 3000 Jimi Hendrix film where they couldn't get any of the music though, so it could prove to be kind of useless. You know,
Yeah,
it's okay. I know you're tired. We only got two more stories. This one ties into a bunch of different stories. Ridley Scott says modern cinema is shit, and he just rewatches his own films. And I'm like, now I'm not gonna lie, he's had some bangers, but that still is kind of limited in its scope because honestly, what is he watching? You know, because it's like, what after Gladiator are you really watching? I know you're not watching White Squall. And if he's rewatching his own movies, then maybe he should be like coming out with director's cuts of like what was that stupid movie he made with Russell Crowe? That comedy about a rich man and wine
yeah.
vineyards,
My name, but I remember when it came out.
or maybe you could improve Gladiator 2 and stop being so gung ho about Gladiator 3. You know, but that ties into Sigourney Weaver saying she'd like to come back as Ripley in this movie that Walter Hill has written, but she doesn't know if it will get made. And I doubt Ridley Scott would probably allow it to get made, even if it did get some, fuel for the fire. And also, Fede Alvarez is not coming back for Alien Romulus, the sequel. There's a talk of who will be, and the rumor is that he's not coming back because really Ridley Scott won't let him come back, even though he co-wrote the script. Any opinions on any part of that story? And
Yeah, he is one of the greatest filmmakers ever, but he's also full of shit. You're the same guy that did a movie called Someone to Watch Over Me, where you had Tom Berenger get punched in the face by Lorraine Bracco, and you used the sound effect of an Indiana Jones punch when it happened. So you're not exactly the perfectionist that you think you are, Ridley. So shut the fuck up. Now, the alien thing, that's interesting that apparently Disney is interested in the script, and Sigourney Weaver has been very adamant if she's going to come back as Ripley, it's got to be on terms that she feels comfortable with the story and the integrity of the character. But again, who you get to direct it, what course of direction does it take, how will it erase what happened in Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection? That's really what's going to be up for debate. And time's ticking. I mean, she's up there in age, even though she still looks amazing. She ain't young. I don't know
she,
what they do to fix it. It's on the right track. The show did pretty well on FX. And yeah, Romulus got a very good reception. But yeah, if you're going to bring Ripley back, you got to go big or go home, or else it's just going to be another crappy sequel. And Ridley Scott should not be, after Prometheus, and specifically the sequel to Prometheus, he should not have autonomy over the Alien franchise. He should just let it go and let the next generation be able to handle it the way it should be progressed.
totally agreed. I'm in the minority. I didn't like the Alien Earth series, but I like the ideas it had. Um, that might have been one of those films where maybe this would have, or that Alien Earth the series. I thought maybe this should have been a movie rather than a series. Whereas, like with Alien Covenant or whatever it was called, and Prometheus, I loved Prometheus style. The art of the film. I just didn't love the story, and especially when you go back and find out what the original plans were, it would have been much more original, and I think maybe a little less audience friendly, but more artistic. And I feel like what we got was something that was designed more to be audience friendly, but also set up a franchise. So it feels like Alien was perfectly fine the way it was made because it was supposed to be a one off. And then, of course, it became a franchise. But when they made Prometheus, it felt like Ridley Scott was like, now I'm into branding, so we got to make this so that it's open for more. And then the sequel, Covenant, really had very little to do with the first one. It just felt like they were making it up as they go along. And yes, this is where the critics of Damon Lindelof, I agree with you. Like he came in and kind of sequelized it and made it more open than it should have been and took the art out of it. He became Akiva Goldsman on this film. So, for our last story, I want to talk about how Terry Zwigoff, who made Bad Santa, he made Ghost World and Adult Art School Confidential, basically has become now a modern day Paul Brickman, where he hasn't made a film in over 20 years. He's kind of living off the residuals of Bad Santa, which thankfully for him was a hit, even though they kind of hampered with the film. And he can't, and he says he's been writing scripts, but he can't find funding for, I guess, the more mid budgeted or low budgeted adult centered films that he wants to make. Because again, the common complaint, they all want sequels, they all want like franchises, and those aren't the films I want to make. Because he did shoot a pilot for a television series that went nowhere, and he had supposedly some things in the fire, but nobody's really hiring him. And I think it's a shame. Look, I like most of the films he's made, and I'm not going to sit here saying we're losing a great auteur, but it's sort of like, I guess, if you have a favorite artist and they just decided to retire because they don't have the means really to really get any of their projects made and are perfectly fine as they're getting older, just living off of what money they can get, from what was essentially their biggest hit. And he's not the only director like this, but I just read an article, an interview with him recently, which is why I brought it up. And this is the last story. So, do you have anything to say about this, or even just the changing quality of projects in Hollywood that are getting made that haven't been said before? And
It's just the state of the business now. They don't want to do risky projects that are going to be intended for the big screen. They rather look at something maybe of what this guy's doing and say, oh, no, this is a streaming release. And that's what's happening. Is the middle of the road movies that we used to enjoy when we were a kid, taking a break from the blockbusters, they're becoming far and few. So it doesn't surprise me that it becomes even harder to get funding for those type of middle of the road movies, because somebody will just look at it and say, "Oh no, this is something you make for Netflix," and you put it out, you dump it, you don't even really give much promotion to it. That's the sad part of the situation.
yeah, I'm surprised there aren't more, let's say, these showrunners who are writers themselves. They don't look up like maybe these directors who made these great films of the past that have followings and ask them just to come in. I mean, some do. Nicole Hofcenter, she directs television. Tamara Davis, who we talked to, she directs television. I'm surprised no one has come to him because, again, he doesn't say it in the article, but no one's gone to him and asked them to, like, direct an episode. Like, that's how the Farrelly brothers started off, was as television directors before they got their feature debut. And I just feel like maybe it has something to do with Hollywood history, or maybe, if you pay attention to the past, or maybe it's a thing of not networking where you kind of get forgotten even though your movies are still out there being praised. But no one's asking you, like, or interviewing you, which is why, like I said, I feel like he's a modern day Paul Brickman. For those who don't know, Paul Brickman, writer director of the great Risky Business and Men Don't Leave. Notice what words I left out in describing that film. But that is actually the last news story we have. So we want to thank all the people who tuned in and viewed, and all those people who are eventually going to watch this, hopefully, when we post it on social media. And, thank you. Please spread word. Please help me get to 1,000 so I can host again. But I have no problem handing over the reins to Andre Joseph for the live episodes. And Andre, please send me this so I can post it immediately, since I won't be able to, or just tag me so at least it'll be on my account. And so we bid you guys adieu, and we're gonna keep doing this. It's not a threat, because we just enjoy doing this and talking about it. So until next time, everybody, see ya.